Hailed heroes in the wake of tragedy, 33-year-old Trooper Martin Mack and 29-year-old Trooper Brendan Siska died in the line of duty early this morning. According to Pennsylvania State Police, around 12:45, the troopers responded to a report of a man walking in the left lane on I-95 South just before the sports complex.
As they were attempting to put him into custody and walk him back to the vehicle, a vehicle traveling at a high rate of speed in the left lane, in between the Jersey barrier and the left lane itself, and struck all three individuals. The impact was so great that it threw the troopers over into northbound lanes of Interstate 95.
Investigators tell us the female driver who had a passenger in the car also hit the Jersey barrier and then ended up in the right shoulder. The driver is in custody. At the Troop K barracks on Belmont Avenue in Philadelphia, state police brought in the woman's Chevy and the trooper's SUV to process for evidence. State police tell us they're conducting a DUI-related investigation into the deaths of the man walking on I-95 and the troopers.
They both had bright careers ahead of them, and it saddens me to know how their lives were senselessly cut short.
Jayana Webb sat quietly, leaned forward, her elbows on her knees, in the courtroom in March of 2022, and listened as her lawyer Michael Walker argued that his client was very young, a first-time offender, and posed no danger to the public. Walker said there was no need for Webb to remain jailed while awaiting trial, which he said could take 1 to 3 years. He argues that she was not a flight risk, and there are things that could be put in place to protect society if you believe she's a danger to it, like put her on an electronic cuff, make her sit on house arrest, he was heard arguing. The judge, however, sided with the district attorney's office based on the seriousness of the charges. Quote, "I do see that there is a public safety issue here," the judge said. Webb sat hunched over in her chair. She cried quietly when the judge denied bail. She was not showing much emotion before that. Michael Walker said, "There should never be a rush to judgment." He called the charges against Webb allegations that need to be presented in court under oath. Those, quote, "allegations were going to be hard for Jayana to beat."
Heartbroken family of a man killed alongside 2 state troopers on I-95 is opening up about his death. Thanks for joining us here at 6 o'clock. I'm Jim Rosenfield.
I'm Jacqueline London, and even in mourning, the family of Reyes Rivera Oliveras is finding it in their hearts to forgive the woman charged in his death. You will only see this on NBC 10. Here's Francis Wang.
It's hard. My words cannot explain how I'm feeling right now.
The sister of 28-year-old Reyes Rivera Oliveras still can't process the news.
I just want people to remember him as a happy person as he was.
Reyes, along with 2 Pennsylvania state troopers, Martin Mack and Brandon Siska, were killed early Monday morning on I-95. Troopers say 21-year-old Jayana Webb drove into them, now investigating if she was drunk. Reyes' sister says that night he was supposed to fly to Puerto Rico. He showed up at the airport but never made his flight. Instead, he ended up on the highway, and she still doesn't know why.
Don't just go around, and you don't know what damage you can cause to a family, like emotional damage that a family can go through.
The family is focusing on getting his body back to Puerto Rico, where he always wanted to be.
Unfortunately, he gotta go back that way, but at the end of the day, what matters is that what he wanted, and that's what we're trying to do.
Meanwhile, Webb's bail was denied, and she'll remain in jail until at least an April 5th hearing. Oliveira's sister sharing this response.
We forgive that young lady that causes this incident. We cannot judge anybody. Pray that God can give her the strength to go through this process, because I know she needs it.
In Philadelphia.
A little more than 24 hours earlier, Jayana Webb was a free woman. On March 21st, 2022, she was tweeting about getting drunk and taking people's man. You know, what normal and well-adjusted people tweet about. She was planning on getting drunk that day, something that seemed like a bit of a preoccupation for Jayana. You can find tweet after tweet about getting twisted on her Twitter. But this night, the braggadocious and very arrogant Jayana Webb was about to make the mistake of her life. Why the cop pull me over and say I'm doing 120 and a 50? Laughing, crying emojis. This infamous tweet would end up being one of the most eerie and ironic tweets in history. The twist of fate was that the two cops she was talking about were state troopers, Martin F. Mack and Trooper Brandon T. Siska. Siska and Mack were assigned to Troop K, which patrols state highways in Philadelphia, Montgomery, and Delaware counties. Siska of Trapp in Montgomery County came from a family committed to public safety. The 29-year-old officer was the son of Deputy Craig Siska, a 10-year veteran of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, according to Sheriff Sean Kilkenny. The younger Siska graduated from the State Trooper Academy in 2021 and served as a volunteer fire chief with the Trapp Fire Company, where his wife, father, and father-in-law are also members. He had married last fall, and according to an online baby registry, he and his wife were expecting their first child in July, according to the Philadelphia Daily News. The two troopers were conducting a traffic stop, presumably for erratic driving, considering how drunk Jayana was. The traffic stop was interrupted by reports of a man walking in a southbound traffic lane near Lincoln Financial Field around 12:45 a.m. that Monday. Jayana was most likely going to be arrested, as her blood alcohol would later be revealed to be more than double the legal limit. Her getting arrested would probably have been the best outcome that fateful night. The two troopers would leave the traffic stop to attend to the dangerous situation of a man walking on a busy interstate highway. Reyes Rivera Olivares, a 28-year-old, was walking southbound on I-95. Olivares and his family moved to the U.S. around 10 years ago in search of a better life. His sister Sierra told NBC 10 they spent 8 years in Boston before moving to Allentown 2 years ago. His sister explained that Reyes had earlier been dropped off at the Philadelphia International Airport to board a flight to his native Puerto Rico. That night, Sierra hugged and kissed her brother goodbye and told him she loved him. He said he'd call when he arrived on the island, and then Reyes showed his sister the Bible that he always carried with him. The troopers who stopped Reyes didn't think the highway was a safe place to talk, so they sought to take him into custody and ensure his safety, which was a quote from NBC 10. At the same time, they were walking towards their vehicle. Jayana was now flying down the southbound lane at a high speed and tried to pass them on the shoulder, resulting in the tragic fatalities from both troopers and the civilian. The force of the crash threw the troopers into the northbound lane. After hitting the three men, the driver, Jayana, struck a barrier separating lanes, continued a short distance, and ended up on the right shoulder. Webb of Eagleville was still at the scene when police arrived. When dispatchers could not communicate with Mack and Siska, they sent backups, authorities said. Police said that by the time the other troopers arrived, some witnesses were attempting life-saving aid on Mack, Siska, and Olivares. All three were pronounced dead at the scene. Colleagues and friends remembered the fallen troopers as devoted public servants and young community leaders whose careers were cut short. After the tragedy of that night, a bunch of legal wrangling and disagreements between the lawyers, judge, and DA about how to charge this case ensued. Webb was initially held without bail after her preliminary hearing. But in June, 3 months later, a judge dismissed the third-degree murder charges and set her bail at 10% of $600,000, only for the charge to immediately be refiled by District Attorney Larry Krasner. Now, there's a whole racial element that was very ever-present in this case as well. Objectively speaking, Jayana Webb's actions and subsequent lack of remorse are jarring. It's disturbing, and I'm sure I can think of a bunch of other adjectives to describe her behavior. All of that is fine. I don't have a problem with that. What I don't like is when people try, and most of the time very clumsily, to imply that her race is even relevant to her actions in this case. That argument is very reductive and ignorant in my opinion. moving on, when it came to the court of public opinion, Jayana would lose that battle outright. When the tweets were noticed, people pointed out that she constantly tweeted about alcohol and drunk driving. Webb is a 2018 graduate of a Norristown area high school and lives in Eagleville in Montgomery County. Webb ran track in high school and was one of the top runners on her team, according to her Twitter account and a now deleted post the high school put on Facebook while she was a student. According to NBC 10, Webb admitted to drinking strawberry Hennessy to the police the night she was arrested. She also had a very arrogant persona online and came off to some people as very self-indulged. On the night of the crash, Jayana posted the fact that she got pulled over drunk, which we spoke of earlier, and in her mind had gotten away with it. At this point, with her being drunk and probably feeling good, and the adrenaline rush of that situation probably had her feeling invincible, after going directly to her phone to brag about what just happened, she continued driving. Her foot was heavy on the pedal as she reached 81 miles per hour, according to her iPhone, and she never put the phone down. She tweeted one more time about being happy that her friend was with her that night when she was pulled over, before suddenly smacking into the 3 people that were walking back to the cop car. Jayana tried to swerve at the last minute, but the impact sent the officers flying across the intersection and Reyes flying into the air. Jayana stopped and pulled over in disbelief of what had just happened. Due to the fact that Jayana would plead guilty, there was never a trial in this case. A lot of the facts came out in the preliminary hearing. In a high-stakes courtroom showdown lasting 8 hours, the central question of malice loomed large in Webb's murder charges. Prosecutor Chung and defense attorney Walker sparred over forensic evidence that painted a grim picture. Forensic toxicologist Richard Cohen revealed Webb's blood alcohol content at a staggering 0.211, double the legal limit. Marijuana was also present in her toxicologist report. State Trooper Mark Gibble, a digital investigator, traced tweets from Webb's account to the phone seized at the crash site. The phone's abrupt speed change, documented at 81 miles per hour to a sudden stop, added a chilling layer. A gut-wrenching video of the fatal crash played, reducing Webb to tears. In closing, Walker portrayed the crash as ordinary negligence, countering malice. A witness testified at first that they had seen brake lights from Jayana's vehicle, but changed her story in court. Walker used this to dismiss malice. Prosecutor Chung, however, pointed to Webb's alleged defiance of a trooper's warning, seeing malice in her actions. Ultimately, when everything was said and done, Jayana Webb, 23, who was 7 months pregnant, received a sentence of 27.5 to 60 years in prison after she pleaded guilty to 3 counts of third-degree murder and homicide by vehicle while driving under the influence. Her attorney, Mike Walker, told the Philadelphia Inquirer that under the terms of her guilty plea, she will remain free until she gives birth in February, after which she will be permitted to spend some bonding time with her child before reporting to prison.
Today we're learning more about the woman allegedly behind the wheel and suspected of drunk driving. Jeff Cole joins us live now. And Jeff, you were there as she was brought out by police in handcuffs.
I certainly was. Her name is Jayana Webb. She's 21 years old. She was walked out in handcuffs, her face shrouded by a gray hoodie, said nothing as reporters swarmed her, got into an SUV by the state police, and driven off. Wearing the handcuffs of the 2 Pennsylvania state troopers she's alleged to have run down and killed, Jayana Webb of Eagleville is walked out of Troop K in Philadelphia to a state police SUV.
Did you drink that night?
The 21-year-old is charged with multiple felony counts of murder in the 3rd degree, homicide by motor vehicle while under the influence, and manslaughter in the alleged killing of state troopers Martin Mack, Brandon Siska, and a pedestrian at 1 in the morning Monday on I-95 south near the stadiums. State police say Trooper Mack, 33 years old, and 29-year-old Trooper Siska were called to 95 for a report of a man walking in the left lane southbound as they were trying to get 28-year-old Reyes Rivera Oliveras of Allentown to the safety of their vehicle. Webb is alleged to have struck them.
A vehicle traveling at a high rate of speed in the left lane, in between the Jersey barrier and the left lane itself, traveled at a high rate of speed and struck all three individuals.
Did you see those troopers? The force of the strike sent all three men into the northbound lane where they died.
Also down. Assist. State police, southbound I-95 at Broad Street. If possible, auto accident, getting a non-response from the officers.
Troopers arriving on the scene found witnesses trying to revive the victims, and the doors sheared off the police SUV. Webb remained on the scene in her smashed vehicle. How much had you had to drink that night? Citing two sources, Fox 29 has reported Webb was pulled over for suspected DUI before the crash some 2 miles away, but the troopers left her when dispatched to the man walking on the highway. Sources tell Fox 29 Webb's blood alcohol level was twice the legal limit. Webb looked distraught as cameras and reporters swarmed her as she walked past flowers placed at the barracks in memory of the fallen troopers.
Ma'am, what were you doing on the highway that night?
Now, if convicted, Webb could spend nearly a lifetime in jail for the horrific crash on 95 early Monday morning that kills three.
Thanks for watching. This has been American Confidential. Until next time, be safe.